Hello, friends, and welcome to our next episode of Rewind and Reflect, where we believe in the universal truth that there's no such thing as coincidence or mistakes. And we are here to share our experience on that with you. My name is Deb Miller.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Doyle. Hi, Deb. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so grateful that the days are getting longer around here. It was not lost on me. I was coming home. I had a little business trippies day thing that I had to do yesterday, in New York, and I was pulling in my street at about 4:30-ish, and the sun was still out. It was cold. Not like I was going out for a run or anything, but the sun was still out. And then I started to make dinner at like 5:30, and I looked out and it was still light. It's like, oh, we're
I
coming out of
know
the tunnel.
it makes such a difference. I mean, here in
Such a
Florida,
huge difference.
yeah, we're still light till probably 6:30 now. And then, but I can't even tell you the conversations that I've had recently with people that have come into town. We had a party for my mom, and people came from Connecticut, and them saying the same thing, like, "Oh, it's so great that it's lighter later because it really can fuck you up mentally."
Worlds of difference. Worlds of difference. I did hear, like, or I don't know, maybe it was on the news last year or something, that I think we're not going to do it come next year, the year after, or something like that. I think that's the one thing that our government, like, could agree upon is
No more
no more
daylight
daylight
saving.
saving. Yeah,
So
I'll
what does
take it.
that mean? What does that mean that we're not going to go
We
backwards
won't
or not
fall
go?
back or spring. It'll be like, I think, how it is in the summer. So it'll still be dark in the morning, but it's dark in the morning anyway.
I know, I know.
I mean, it doesn't get light till 7 o'clock regardless. So who cares?
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Nothing makes sense.
it doesn't, but yeah, I do feel like I was so grateful that the sun was out yesterday, and that it just 5:30, 5:40, I looked out, I'm like, oh, it's still light. So anyway, so I was in New York City yesterday, in Flushing, Queens, for a work event. And so it was at like this health fair kind of thing, and I had a table representing the company that I work for. And I met a man who was 101 years old.
What?
I wanted to take this man home. So I had to sign them up for some things, and so his birth date read 1923, and it's, I'm not the mathematician of the family. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's 102. And I looked, and it was actually, I think he was born in July. So it had to have been his daughter, and language barrier. So they did have an interpreter with them. And I looked at him, I said, and I put my hand on my heart, I said, "You're 102." And he's like, and then he puts up a one, right? And I so desperately wanted to ask him, like, what is this? Like, what is the secret? What is the code? Unlock the code for me. And I saw him for the majority of the event he was walking by himself,
Walking? Not even in a wheelchair.
walking, faculties, the whole 9 yards. Always, the entire time he was there, has a smile on his face.
Aw.
And I'm thinking to myself, what a beautiful gift to
Mm,
give to your family
mhm.
is your presence for so many years. And then I thought how many decades of change he has been witness to,
Oh,
and still sat there with a smile on his face, happy to be there, eating a sandwich, like
that is
getting his
amazing.
little flu shot. It was amazing. It was just amazing.
So, okay, continue.
So I was just, so then I went and taught my class this morning, And I started to, while I was teaching, I started to think, how evolved my teaching has become, right? So, you know, I used to approach the teaching, especially when I started teaching yoga, and for a long time, like I wanted my students to get exactly what I got out of it because it was so life-changing for me that I wanted everybody that I came in contact with to experience the exact same thing. And so I would teach like that. I would teach like I wanted to like drill it into their heads. And then kind of like this little man, I thought about it today and I said, you know what? Once I started to just realize and be okay with knowing that this is a gift that I have. I was born with a gift to be able to do this.
Mhm.
And as soon as I started just presenting my gift to people and teaching from that space, instead of wanting them to get it right, or wanting them to get exactly what I gotta, so if I got 12 things, I wanted them to get 13 things. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, my teaching became so much more natural. I don't have to think about what I'm gonna say. It just kind of comes out. And I've never had to ever like choreograph a class or anything like it truly just comes out of my brain.
Wow.
Um, in a way that makes sense. And so, I was thinking, that really is it's really powerful that I was able to sort of make, and I'm still evolving because I'm still like, I still sometimes feel like, really, I told you to turn your back foot to the side. Like, can you just put your fucking heel down for God's sakes, right? And I'm like, you know what? I can't inject my experience on
Mhm.
anybody else's, but I do believe that I was meant to do this and present it, and so and then it made me think about you. And, I know that are a huge part of the 12-step program. It has saved your life.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, and I know that you've sponsored people, but I'm sure because of that, you have wanted to sponsor people and want to talk about um, how it saved your life and how deeply you are rooted. And I'm wondering is if your sponsorship or your ability to be a sponsor has evolved over the course of time, and wondering if you ever experienced like your first sponsor or your first sponsee or even your fifth one, like just wanting to drill it into their head, like you have to get this right and you have to do it exactly the way I did it because it worked,
Mhm. Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Well, so I look at what we do, what you do, what I do, what people do in general that have been given some kind of I don't know, gift, honor, whatever you want to call it, to help other people. It's the same as being a mentor, right? So somebody will seek you out and say, I want what you have. Sue, I see how much energy you have. I see you have a kick-ass body. You're in good spirits. Like, I want to be healthy and happy. And I want you to teach me because you have what it takes and you know what you're doing. And so when somebody comes to me the same way, like, I just want to stay sober. I don't want to drink and drug anymore. I need help. They'll go to somebody who has had a lot of time in the program, because when you want to change, you'll seek out the person ahead of you that has gone through that, and they'll teach you what to do. So, and very much like you want them to take this gift, accept this gift, and then show it around to everybody and say, look what I've got, and then give that gift away. And that's what we're doing. We received a gift and then we're giving it away so that others can have that gift and then share it with others. The most frustrating thing I found in early sobriety, my sponsor made me start sponsoring people. Literally, it was my 1 year anniversary. I was getting my 1 year chip, and there was a newcomer at this meeting who raised her hand and said, I'm looking for a sponsor. And my sponsor was like, You're doing it.
Pushed you down the aisle. Here,
Yeah.
take
And I
her.
go, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. She goes, You're ready and you're doing it. And so I did it. And it was a disaster.
Well,
It
how
did,
so?
well, it was kind of a unique situation because this young woman, she was like 17 or 18, came in to a CA meeting, which is Cocaine Anonymous, which is like the same as kind of an NA meeting, but it just went by CA, whatever. So she comes in this meeting. So it's not an AA meeting. It's not like she's struggling with alcohol. She came specifically to a drug meeting.
Hmm.
So um after the meeting, I went up to her and I started talking to her. And then we were walking out to the parking lot and her mother was there, and her mother made herself very injected into our conversation and was like, really hard on her daughter. Like, why are you, the meeting finished 15 minutes ago. Why weren't you out here? What is going on? Who are you talking to? Da, 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 da. And she introduced, this is Deb. She's going to sponsor me. Well, what the hell does that mean? And how long is that going to take? And, it was really
Wow.
crazy. And anyways, it turned out that the young girl who showed up to the meeting wasn't really the one that needed help at all. It was her mother. And so through my sponsorship of Sarah, it was really uncovered that she didn't need help. Her mother was in desperate need of help for drinking. And so that was like a really odd kind of situation. Um, my second sponsee, she tried to commit suicide.
Oh
And
my goodness.
so that made me feel really bad because we had worked months and months together. And I was at the time I was working on New Britain Avenue in Farmington, and the police station is just a couple doors down from us. So I have a coworker of mine in my car, and we're pulling out. We're going to go out and grab some lunch, and an ambulance goes by us, and I pull out in back of the ambulance, and I'm following at a safe distance and everything, but the ambulance pulls over, and and I'm like, what the heck? And she's like waving to me to stop. And I'm like, shit. Um, am I in trouble? Whatever. She said, I have somebody in the back of our ambulance that says you're her sponsor and she'd like to talk to you. So I
Oh
was like,
my God.
so this sponsee of mine had taken a bunch of pills and then went down to the police station and said, I need help. I just took this huge bottle of pills. And so they put her in an ambulance. And so she relapsed and then had multiple issues moving forward. So that was upsetting. And I just said after that, I'm not going to sponsor anybody again. I
Did
can't.
you feel like it was too soon? Like, did you feel like you weren't equipped to do it because you're fairly new in your own sobriety, even though your sponsor wanted you to do it?
No, I was very ready. I know that now because I know
Hmm.
that the chance of one of your sponsors actually making it is very slim. So those were all just natural scenarios that everybody goes
Right.
through when they're sponsoring people because it's really, really hard to stay clean and sober. You have to do all of the things that are being asked of you, and sometimes people don't want it. And if somebody doesn't want to get clean and sober, they don't want to get healthy or lose weight, there's nothing that you can do or say to them that's going to make them be all in.
What did you say to yourself? Because I have, there are times in my career where I would be like, okay, I I would be saying the things, but not really feeling the things. And so that's, we've talked a couple of times about like imposter syndrome, right? And I'm feeling like, okay, well, people keep coming back. So
Yeah.
there's something there. Like there's something there, but why does it not feel um genuine or good, or like I don't know, it felt more burdensome to me. Like,
Mhm.
oh God, here I go. I got to do this again. And now I feel very much just it is an absolute privilege
Mhm.
for me to get up there knowing that it's it's not a reflection of, I guess, me as a person, but it is a reflection of the delivery of my gift. Yeah.
It's not
And
a
so
reflection
like,
of the delivery of your gift. It's a reflection if that person is ready, willing, and able or not. It's it
yeah.
it has nothing to do with how you're delivering it, how you're teaching it, what you're saying, what music you're playing, nothing. If somebody really wants change, they will stick with it. And sometimes, just like with you, yeah, I mean, I hate exercising so much. It just is like it's painful for me to even think of it. So I would be one of those people that would show up like, here I go. And, you know, and you could probably, but they do the same thing with me in sponsorship. Like when we have to dig really deep into the past and we have to
Hmm.
really examine parts of them that are causing them to keep hitting their head against the wall and character defects. Well, nobody wants to admit that they have character defects or we have to say, you accountability, they have to nobody wants to do that. So it's really difficult. We get to this one step and it's step 4. And that's pretty much where you've got to list all of the things that we just talked about. And unless you really want to get through this and remain clean and sober, you have to dig deep. And so many people, I lose them at this step because they just, A, can't see their part in it. B, uh, they can't see their part. They can't, their ego has gotten to a point where it's everybody else, not them. They can't look at their character defects, or they can look at their character defects, but they're not ready to let go of them because that protected them for so long. Need to control or stubbornness or whatever, anger. Those things kept them safe for a very long time and felt and protected. So, and I'm asking them to give them up and trust. And that's really difficult to do. So I lose a lot of sponsees during that time. And I had one situation that almost took me down. And
Wow.
yeah, I was probably 5 years sober, and I had a family member come to me who was in trouble. And they kept asking every time they would get in trouble, either with the wife or with police or whatever, oh, I need help. What do I do? And I would say, go to meetings, get a sponsor, or go to rehab. Like there's all these things. And it was my advice was never taken, and this person would find themselves in these situations over and over and over again. And I because this person was so close to me and it really was affecting a lot of people that were close to me, they were kind of going on that this person's side and saying, leave them alone, you don't need to interject. I'm like, I'm not interjecting. They're asking me for my advice on how to get well, and I'm giving them to them.
Hmm.
And I just felt like I was really snubbed, and that the way that I got sober and clean was like beneath them. This person, I'm not like them. I'm not like you, I can do this on my own or whatever. And it just was a revolving circle. And finally, my sponsor said to me, this is the best advice. And I give this to all my sponsees that are working with sponsees. And they said, if you're trying to help somebody who's not ready to get help, they will get you drunk before you get them sober.
Wow.
When she said that
Wow.
to me, I said, That's exactly what's happening. I'm losing my mind right now because I'm laying this out on a silver platter and they're looking their down their nose at it, and they're snubbing something that is so important to me that saved my life, which is a 12-step program.
Right.
And they're
Right.
saying, "No, I don't need that. I'm not like you." And it just twisted me up and broke my heart. So after finally I just said, "Do not call me again. If you get in trouble, if this is a problem, I've given you all the tools. Don't call me again. Call somebody else." And the problem went on for quite some time. And then, you know, this person is okay now, but I had to really get when you know that you're too close to it,
Right.
and it's hurting you. Their lack of progress is hurting you. Like
Correct.
you're staying up at night thinking, how can I help them? How can I get them better? How can I? That's codependency. And that's when you got to say,
Hmm.
no, this is my recovery. This is how I did it. If you want to do it, these are what you need to do. And if you don't want to do it, okay, that's your choice. But
Correct.
I'm not gonna.
You know, it's funny because when the same thing, I think with, with teaching my classes is this is what I got out of it.
Mhm,
And this is what I continue to get out of it. If you want to just come and be here and enjoy the atmosphere, have at
yeah.
it. And if you want to, and it's interesting because when people say to me, I want to do it like you do it, or the same thing that somebody says to you, I want to, my response to them is, well, I am me and you are you,
Mhm,
but I can give you a blueprint
mhm,
and you can take it and nuance it for it to speak to you
mhm.
or not.
Right. Yeah.
And my yoga teacher said something. He says it a lot, and it so resonates. And it says, you said very similarly. Teachers are just students farther down the path,
Yes. Yeah.
and we, for whatever reason, it just spoke to me. I felt the need to turn it around and continue with it and shed light for others, as
Mhm.
have you. um
Well, we also have to remember that we're not asking the people that we're helping, they're not getting a grade from us. So they don't have to be invested like if they were in a classroom, right?
mhm,
What they're getting from us is a better way of living. And they, again, need
correct.
to want that. And
Correct.
it's very few and far between that will make it because of the hard work. Your hard work is physical, mine is emotional and psychological and all of that. Um, but I will tell you, and this is, I'm going to have, we are going to have one of my sponsees on the podcast. I'm hoping that it will be next week, so it'll air after this podcast is uploaded. And she is one of my success stories. And you probably get one out of every maybe 20 is a success story. But this woman spent the majority of her life in and out of prison, running the streets. And when I say running the streets, I mean like there's like almost drug gangs on streets, that they take care of their turf and this and that and the other thing. She was like running one of those. Like she was the
Wow.
toughest of the tough. And prison didn't scare her, nothing scared her, tough as nails. And she made it, and she had a choice. You can either go to the Salvation Army rehab or you go back to prison. And she said, I always would choose to go back to prison, but this particular time I said, I'll try that. And she has been clean and sober since, and it's been over 3 years. And she has the most
Wow.
wonderful story to tell. And every time I'm working with the sponsee and I'm thinking to myself, they don't believe in themselves because they feel like they have done so, there's no way that they can clean up the mess that they made of their life. I introduced them to Sparkles. That's her name. And well, that's what her street name. So we call her Sparkles. Um, and I say, if she can make it, anybody can. And then she'll
Yeah.
end up sponsoring these women. And it's an incredible story. So I'm really hoping that we'll get a lot of people listening to her story
Yeah.
because it gives a
That's
lot of
awesome.
hope and inspiration. But yeah, I mean, we're taking what God has given us and we're sharing it with those around us to help them live a better life. Um, and I learned to disconnect myself a long time ago, from feeling like I failed them somehow because
Or
I,
that you have an attachment to their success. That's what I think,
yes.
I used to do is I would attach I would attach myself to their success. I would attach my effectiveness as a teacher
Mhm,
to their success.
mhm.
And I had to, it took me a
Yeah.
long time to realize that. And when I did start to realize that and teach from a different place, exploded.
Yeah.
My numbers exploded. The people that I have been able to touch exploded. Everything has just been exponentially larger, faster, deeper. It's
Yes.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, it's attraction, not promotion. We also say that.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
It's
I love
attraction,
that.
attraction, not promotion. So you want people attracted to what you have. Not, you don't want to be out there promoting it and saying, I can fix you, I can do this, I can do that, because then you do feel like you have a responsibility to the outcome.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you feel like it's like, you just gave somebody a money back guarantee, which is not going to hold up. Right. Yeah.
exactly. Right. So, uh, and I tell my sponsees all the time as well. I say to them, your job with your sponsee is to simply show them how you remain clean and sober. You don't get involved in their relationship issues because you're not there for that. You're there
Right.
to show them how you remain clean and sober and how you did it and then share that with them. But it's a fine line because when you're having such intimate conversations with people, it's natural for other things, outside issues, to come in.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, boundaries that are have to be set. Like, and I say, my sponsor said this to me. She said, honey, I am not a relationship expert. You do not want to ask me for, she's like, I've been divorced, I've been this, I've been that. And
Yeah.
true, I don't have the answers to how to, have a great relationship, but I do have the answers on how to stay clean and sober. So
Yeah. So, like, you are just like them, but farther down the path.
yeah, exactly.
I am just like my students, farther down the path.
Yeah. We all started at the same start line.
Yes. Yeah.
We all
Clueless.
started. You
Yeah,
had one,
exactly.
you went to your first class somewhere and
It's funny because my first class, and I remember it, or it was just, it was one of those things. Very similar to what you have told me about, the desire to become clean and sober is I knew I needed something. There was something that I needed that I wasn't sure where to get it. And
hmm,
then the minute I experienced it, I was like, this is it.
yeah, you're home. You're
I am
home.
home. I am going to ride this wave and just keep riding. And it's funny because I you're 20 years. I think I took my first yoga class of this style, which is what speaks to me, I think 21 years ago. So about the same
Really?
time. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got on the recovery train at the same time. Just
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
was that
And
when, and I wanted to ask you this before. I know we talked about your what do you call it? I keep calling it eating disorder, but you call it something else.
I mean, it was disordered eating. Was
Yeah.
I classically anorexic where I start like that I look like a skeleton? Not really, because I would eat just enough to sort of fuel me, but it was more, I like to call it a very unhealthy relationship with food.
Right. So you would like know how many calories you put in and how much you had to burn
Oh,
off.
it was
Yeah.
a constant calculation in my head, a
Yes. And
constant calculation.
so that's, so that is not healthy. But
No.
when did you really say, okay, I've got to let go of this because it is no longer serving me and I know it's not healthy? Like we call it our bottom. Like, did you hit rock bottom at some point, or what happened that made you kind of focus into a healthier direction?
Um, I don't, there was not one defining moment, I don't think. Um, and, no, there was not really, there wasn't like, you know, you didn't get arrested for not eating, right? So,
Yeah, but
I didn't have a felony charge because, I was exercising 6 hours a day.
but you could have ended up in the hospital. Like I could
That's
see.
where the stories kind of veered in different directions. But I mean, for me, it was that I think that that imposter syndrome voice
Mhm.
kept getting louder and louder. And I really felt somewhere that I was going to get very sick
Oh,
if I
okay.
didn't change. Very sick, whether it be cancer. I just thought that I was going to have some sort of disease, most likely cancer, that I would not be able to handle, fight.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know if this came after or before, but I really, really, really wanted to be an amazing example for my daughter. I
Mm,
did not want her to ever feel unworthy or ever feel that she needed to change her body
mm,
or restrict anything. I wanted her to really enjoy life and um I needed to show her a different way.
yeah.
It's kind of like it went back to change. I parented my children very differently than I was parented, right? And I felt like I kind of broke that sort of cycle.
Yeah, you did.
And the one thing that I did not want to do is pass this on to her. And I realized as she got to be a certain age that I could not ever say the words, the triggering words of fat or the bloated or, and as I'm like kind of holding my tongue or noticing my words, I was able to, and listen, it's ebbs and flows. It really does. I mean, there's times even after I felt like, okay, I can have a piece of cake, I can have something other than a fucking salad and not get fat and not do this and not do that. And have a glass of wine every now and then, put a little mayonnaise on my sandwich. Um, you know, I realized that, and I think it was actually an actual conversation with my daughter when she said something to the effect of um, the conversation that I thought was in my head was so loud that she could hear it.
Wow. She felt your struggle. She felt that
And
pain.
I said, I
Mm.
cannot do this any longer.
Oh, honey.
I have to show her a different way. And yoga was a huge part in self-acceptance, in quieting the conversation, and living a better example
Yeah.
of what it is to feel whole. Yeah.
How old was Olivia when that comment was made? Do you remember?
Hmm. Let's
A
see.
teenager?
She was a teenager because the conversation came a lot later.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, the conversation came a lot later, but something to the effect of we were talking and she just said, probably after I got divorced and my son was at college and we were living
Okay.
alone
Yeah.
together and would have some pretty deep,
Yeah.
very raw conversations.
And she said,
Yeah.
I felt that. I felt what was
She
happening.
said you thought she said that was so loud, everybody could hear it.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy how
I thought it was like, I had fooled myself into thinking that nobody noticed. I mean,
yeah.
he's like, Mom, every single meal was a plate of lettuce and like boiled chicken on it. She's like, I said, yeah, right.
It's so funny because even as addicts, we feel like, oh, we're hiding it from everybody. Nobody knows.
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
even better, I'm not hurting anybody but myself. So buzz off,
Right.
and
Right.
um, but it's so beautiful how, well, it's beautiful, but then it also can be like, oof, how in tune our children are to us.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
every single facial expression I have, even if it's like my resting bitch face, like Hunter will look right at me and be like, "What's up?" And I'm like, no, what's up?"
Yeah.
He knows. And if I don't come
Yeah.
clean, he is all, he just and I know that anything that is on my mind, I can share with him because he can handle, because he's just,
Hmm.
not that I ever have anything like bone crushing on my mind or anything, but I can share it with him if I'm having a bad day or whatever. I know he,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's like we just think we can hide from people, but everyone
Yeah.
knows. Everyone
Yeah.
knows.
So it's yeah, it was so no, so thank you for asking that. It really it just, I do have to say that, when an addict gets tired, he's sick and tired of being sick and tired. For me, I did not want I didn't want the calculations any longer. I did not want, I just was so tired of hearing it. It's
Yeah.
exhausting to
Yeah.
keep that up. It's
Oh my God.
exhausting.
Math in general is like exhausting. I can't imagine having to do it for
Yeah.
food.
Every day, all day, it would be like a morning, afternoon thing, then it would be a daily thing, then it would be a weekly thing, then it would be a monthly thing, you know. So,
I have another question for you. Uh,
hmm.
have you, in all of your years practicing yoga and your exercise class, ever identified somebody who was struggling with disordered eating that you felt like, I need to reach out, I need to be there for this person, or
Yes, yes, yes. This girl, oh my goodness. Um, and I'm gonna start to cry again because I'm so proud of her because she now has a child and
she's
is thriving. And yes, when I had my studio, there was a young girl that would come in, she was still in high school, maybe even younger. Her mom signed her up for, a membership and she just had that like deer in headlights, like I am going to get on this machine for hours on end. She was disheveled um and I just, I let her come. Um I did remember calling her mom and I said, uh, for fear of overstepping, and you can tell me that this is none of my business. I said, but I would not feel right if I didn't say anything. I said to her, there's some issues going on here. She said, I know.
Hmm.
And she said, but when I drop her off there, I don't have to worry about her being dead on the side of the road.
Oh man.
So I said, okay. I
Mhm.
said, do you mind if I talk to her? And I said to the mom, I have been there
Mhm.
for a long time. And she said, absolutely. So the father was this really like prominent businessman in the town. And
Mhm.
he called me and I nearly shit myself because I'm like, oh God, he's going to scream at me because I overstepped my bounds. And he picked up the phone. I said, hello. And he said, hi, this is so and so. So and so's dad. I said, yeah, I know who you are. And he said, how did you know?
Mhm.
And I said, how did you not?
Oh, ouch.
And he said, I kind of thought there was something going on. I said, she is not in a good way.
Yeah.
And, I said, I'm going to, he called me to his office.
Ooh.
And I just said, listen, like I've been there. I just want you to know that I will do the best I can to kind of get through to her. But, it's nothing that you did. It's nothing that, it's just, and she stayed for a very long time. It was a summer. Um, Unfortunately, a few years later, several years later, I kind of lost touch with her. Um, but she seemed to have gotten better. Then several years later, her dad passed away,
Mhm.
very suddenly. And I went to the wake and I wasn't sure if she was going to recognize me. And she ran right up to me and gave me the biggest hug. And she said, thank you so much.
Oh.
And now we follow each other on social media. She doesn't live here any longer. And I saw that she is in a relationship and she's had a baby and she went back to school and she's in some sort of medical field. And yeah, so yeah, yes,
Yeah.
to answer
So
your question.
yeah, it's so similar.
Mm-hmm.
She came to you and her mother was relieved that, for that hour or
Mm-hmm.
two she was safe. And it's the same thing when parents bring their kids to rehab. They're like, at least I know I'm not going to get the call saying he's dead. Like my
Yeah,
father said that. It was the first time in months that I slept through the night, the first night you were in rehab. And I get that because you don't know.
yeah,
You don't know what limits they're going to go to. But
correct.
I love that story. And I think that, because you've been there, that's
Mm-hmm.
a gift to help others and identify that this is a problem. I know it because
Right.
I've been you. I was you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's on the flip side with folks that want to be a little more intentional with their life or a little more enlightened.
Yeah.
I was you. I started from square one. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew that I wanted something else.
Yeah.
And just sort of,
Yeah.
again, teachers are just students
Yeah.
down the path a little longer, a little farther.
And I think as we get older, and for me anyways, like, we carry so many buckets,
Yeah.
proverbial buckets.
Mm-hmm.
When you notice that one bucket is empty, you want to fill it so you're balanced, and for me,
Correct.
it's like my spiritual bucket was depleted. And so that's why I, wanted desperately to fill that up. And, one of these days, my physical basket it is so depleted that there's a hole in the bottom and drags along behind me. But
Yeah, well,
one of these days I'll say,
one bucket at a time, sis. One
one
bucket at a
bucket at
time.
a time. Amen to that. I saw something on Facebook recently that said, we're going to chuck it in the fuck it bucket and walk away. We're like, let's
And
just
you know what? I think that is the perfect spot. That is the
yes,
perfect line to end. I'm going to chuck it in the fuck it bucket
and walk away.
and walk away. Light that bitch on fire and walk away.
Yes. Oh, how
Well,
nice.
as always, so good. This is so like cleansing for me.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you. I loved talking to you. I hope got some great feedback. So thank everybody so much for listening. And please share it with others. And if you have any questions or if you have some suggestions or some feedback, we'd love to hear from everybody. You can either DM myself or Deb on social media, or you can email us at rewind and reflect with us at gmail.com. And we're going to be
Absolutely. Have a beautiful week, everybody. Namaste.
Love you. Namaste.